It is mid-November and a lot of weed seeds are continuing to germinate in the gardens, but it is not warm enough to make it easy to get rid of these weeds. It has been unseasonably warm for the last few weeks here in Ireland, which seems to have encouraged more of the weed seeds that are in the soil to germinate in the shelter of the polytunnel and even in some of the exposed garden beds outside. These seedlings are from chickweed and other types of plants that have seeds that apparently can germinate in even colder conditions and would have no problem continuing to grow throughout the winter if we didn't deal with them. Because we are growing salad and other overwintering crops in a lot of these beds, we're trying to keep them clear of weeds, but this can be a time-consuming process. And because I had unfortunately let some weeds grow and drop huge numbers of seeds in the past, there are spots in the gardens that have a carpet of thousands of weed seedlings emerging. Dealing with weeds like this would be fairly easy in the warmth of the spring and early summer. Simply running a hoe across the bed will disrupt the tiny plants enough that they will wilt and die if the weather is sunny, warm, or dry. And even older weed plants will be killed off if too much of their root systems are cut or exposed to the drying conditions. But the conditions are very much the opposite now, with high humidity, cooler temperatures, and very little sun. Many of the seedlings are simply dragged to a new location by the hoe, and even if some of the roots are damaged, there is enough soil moisture to allow the seedlings to reroot. So, with the usual weeding method, a lot of the seedlings are simply transplanted to a new location. They might be set back a bit, but they have the moisture and lack of stress to regrow quite effectively, similar to when I prick out seedlings when propagating tiny vegetable plants. One pass with a hoe or wire weeder isn't enough at this time of year. We have to keep going back to the same patches a few times to move the soil around and hassle the weed seedlings, and each time they get weaker and more of them die off. With larger patches of weeds in beds or paths where we haven't planted anything yet, I find the best option is to use a flame weeder to kill most of the seedlings first, before cultivating the soil or planting crops. Even a quick pass with a flame is enough to wilt the tiny leaves, and most of them won't survive. More seeds are likely to continue to germinate throughout our mild winter and into the spring, so we will have to weed the beds around the crops quite regularly to prevent the weeds from becoming established. And when it isn't warm enough to kill off the seedlings, a quick blast with the intense heat is useful in areas safely away from the plants that we want to keep. Having to do this much weeding is a winter job I wasn't anticipating, which is partially because the warmer weather is causing more germination, but not warm enough to make the weeding an easier task, as well as the unfortunate legacy of failing to weed these gardens adequately in the past.